Okay, so I'm just going to dive right into it. Recently, I decided to take my first step into scuba diving with doubles. And going into it, I was very concerned about the extra weight, like how heavy it might be and how I'd manage overall. So I just want to share my experience for anyone else that um, might want to know about someone's experience, starting out with doubles for the first time. So I was worried about the weight, very, very worried. I felt like I needed to start working out or something beforehand. But for me personally, yes, like it is heavier. It is a bit more difficult for me to manage on land. Um, but amazingly, like a lot easier than I expected. So that's good. I do notice that when I get out from the dives, um, after using doubles, um, I am a bit more exhausted and not as easy with like stepping upstairs, for instance, or something like that. I do need a hand. Um, but yeah, and my first day actually diving with them, um, everything was fine as far as trim and buoyancy. It was totally normal for me. Uh, the only thing that needed work and still needs fine tuning, because I've only done 2 days diving with doubles right now, um, was just the configuration. So I had a problem with the isolator hitting the back of my neck and my head. So especially when you're doing the skills, you have to kind of look up, especially if you're turning the valves. And just like for the isolator valve, like there's no way in hell I'm able to look up when I'm turning that and like my hand is whacking my head. So some solutions that we had for that, like we moved the crotch strap down lower and tighter, and we also, I think, moved the isolator valve a little back. Actually, I'm not sure how they did that per se, but they were able to move it a little bit back. And also, I think going forward, another change we're going to make is just take the tank bands and move them up, actually. So the two cylinders are a little bit lower. But the first day, I was pretty uncomfortable with the dive because of the isolator valve hitting my head. And also, I got like the worst leg cramps I've ever gotten. So that wasn't fun. And it was interesting getting used to just swimming with the heavier weight and just being a bulkier object in the water. Um, But my second day, I was able to prevent cramps. I did a combination of things. I took rehydration salts, first of all, because as you can maybe guess, I'm here in Egypt and it's very hot right now in the middle of summer. So I made sure to keep hydrated. And also, I changed my form a little bit, and I extended my legs a bit more at an angle. I think I was holding them a little bit like too much at a right angle, and I needed to put them more at a bit of like a 45-degree angle. So I made sure to extend my legs a bit more, and I think that helped with my trim too. And the leg cramping, it helped with the leg cramping. And yeah, I think the first day also I was just a bit overwhelmed with the weight, the new bulkiness, and moving a little bit faster than I normally would. Just because I felt a bit of like, new thing, like panic. Um, but the second day, I fell a little bit harder back on my regular diving skills, just sort of floating, not stressing too much, trying to use as little energy as possible and making my kicks as efficient as possible. And through like relaxing a bit more and modifying my kick a little, I was able to prevent those cramps from the weight. Um, Swimming at the surface, I've heard, is very difficult for people. for me, I was able to just like lie on my back and kick, and I was fine. It wasn't like a hard smack of reality. Like I've heard other people say, like swimming at the surface with doubles is so hard and they weren't prepared for it. And maybe it is for some people, but for me, there wasn't a problem there. So the second day, we practiced skills. So I essentially did my a doubles primer with GUE, Global Underwater Explorers. And so in addition to learning about the configuration and the different like positives and negatives of it, we went through the drills for the doubles, and also some of the GUE basic 5 skills as well. So the valve skills, I learned the acronym FLIB, front, left, back. And I always remember this like the movie Flubber, so FLIB, Flubber, and that's just the way I was able to remember FLB. And FLB is essentially how you can turn the tank valves to turn them off. So the first thing you learn is, just how to do the basic little checks. And we went through just doing little checks of the valves to make sure they're on. So I had to just turn it back like one turn, and then turn it forward one turn to make sure everything, all 3 of them, are on and functioning properly. So I essentially learned the proper hand movement to do that. So you go from right to left. So right, to see if it's off, you go front half a turn, and then your head needs to be up, and then you go back half a turn, and then you move to the isolator, and you go left, and then right. And again, this is making sure that everything is on. And then with your left hand, you look up, and with your left valve, finally, you turn it back, and then you turn it forward again. And that just confirms that everything is on and functioning. So after we had practiced that, then we moved into, turning the right one like off all the way, and breathing from the regulator until it was empty, the primary regulator, and then switching to the back regulator and making sure, to bleed or what is the word? Making sure that the backup regulator is functioning. So you always purge it twice to make sure it's functioning properly before putting it in your mouth. So yeah, so I breathed my primary until there was no air left after switching off the right valve, and then I switched to my backup and I clipped my primary. Okay, again, so when I'm ready, I turn the valve back on. So I turn it back on, and then I test my primary. I unclip, I test it twice by purging it, making sure air is coming out or gas is coming out, and then I switch back to my primary. And then, so the right valve is the only one that I essentially would bleed or breathe until I feel the feeling of no gas at all. And then the other 2, you would turn off the isolator, but you can still breathe from the primary, and then you turn that back on. And then you do the same with the final backup regulator, and you just purge it into once you've turned it off to show that there's no gas left, and then you turn it back on. So yeah, that skill was pretty simple under the water, actually. I know some people have issues with flexibility with their arms and stuff. So I guess it's a personal thing, but for me, I didn't have any problems with that. Um, yeah, and practicing the basic five, it's still something I'm going through. I'm coming up to taking my GUE fundamentals course like next week. So I'm trying to, that's partly why I decided to take this primer. So I'm practicing and fine tuning the skills, and that was my first introduction, getting ready for the fundamentals that I'm taking next week. So the basic five, if I didn't have the experience I do have, it would actually be pretty overwhelming, But because I have gone through like becoming a dive master and doing skills, and because I've done it, especially at a center that teaches GUE, some of the little things, some of the little like nuances, I'm already familiar with. Like I've been to a diving center that takes diving seriously, so I know to always keep my regulator face down. Never to hold it up so it can free flow. Like I know to hold my regulator, the primary, from the hose, and always hold it down. Uh, yeah, and I'm pretty comfortable with the mask skill, so going from the patty where you remove it with two hands, and you can put it back on your head with two hands, and then you clear it. Going to a skill like in the GUE Basic 5 where you do the whole thing with one hand, and you remove the mask with one hand, and then you put it back on your face without putting the strap on, and then you like clear it, and then you suck in, and then you put the strap on the back. That was pretty simple for me to get, just because I am very comfortable with the mask skill already. Um, so yeah, and the final part, we had some like uh, classroom time, just talking about how you would plan gas if you're doing like two dives with the doubles. So planning how much gas you would use for each one of the two dives without changing cylinders. So yeah, it was a good class, and I would recommend it especially to anyone that wants to go for a tech pass for GUE. I would say like do not go into fundamentals without experience with doubles, because I feel like a lot of time goes into just getting your configuration right, and finding your weighting and all of that. Um, uh, yeah, but it wasn't too hard if you're, especially if you're like a female and you're worried about the weight, and if you're a diver, you're already doing something tough on a regular basis. Like they're not going to ask you to do anything crazy like walk long distances with the doubles on your back, like walk forever with the doubles on your back or anything like that. So I think it's pretty manageable. If you're a diver, you're already tough, so you can do this. uh, yeah, and that's pretty much my experience. I might add some things if I think of anything else. um, but I hope you guys took something from this, maybe find comfort in hearing someone else's experience. And I wish you all a beautiful day. Happy diving.